Hi everyone, very good morning. Let me share my screen. We will continue the basics of integration today. We will start with the quick recap of what we did yesterday, not yesterday, only our last session, and then we will see how we can improve that thing. Okay, so we have two org. On the left hand side, we have the interview prep org, and on the right hand side, we have SM Shivangi org. On SM Shivangi org, we basically created a web service. So if I open the developer console here, we just created a web service on the SM Shivangi org, and then we tried to do a call out by the interview prep org. So you can see this is a web service we created, and we have two methods, HTTP GET and HTTP POST. And from our interview prep org, we did a call out from the anonymous window. That's what we did last time. So this is not okay. Let's see what we did. We will convert it to a class, and there was a HTTP code we did. So from our anonymous window, we did that call out, and we were able to call this class. Okay, we were able to call this web service. Now, because we were doing the call out from anonymous window, and we were for authentication, we were using the session ID. Session ID is not a very good approach because every time your session will expire, that session ID will expire. And then to do the call out, you will be needing that session ID again and again. So we will have to improve the process. Okay. So if I open the okay. So what I want to do right now is that I want to create a class which will do call out. Okay, so that we will have classes on both the orgs, the org which is doing the call out and the org which is exposing the API. So for that, let's create a new class and call it call out to SM Shivangi org. And let's create a method public static void do. From here, we will be doing the call out. Okay, so for call out, what we need, how do we do the call out? If I show you the standard HTTP call out, Salesforce, Trailhead, there is a REST call out Trailhead available, and I want everybody who is not comfortable with this topic to go through that Trailhead. And let me just log in. This is the sample code of any call out. Okay. This is for the get. Okay. Similarly, if you want to send data, you will be doing a post call out. Because we have exposed only get and post, you can only do get call out or post call out. Okay. So let me just copy the code of call out here. Let's just copy this and put it here. Let me just do the fixed identification. And now here we need to provide the endpoint, right? And we discussed last time is that this cases will should be appended with the base URL and services slash epic rest, right? So let's see if we have that already. No. All right, that is fine. Let us get the base URL. This is the base URL, and then there should be services slash epics rest. rest slash cases. That is what our endpoint will be, because that's where we have given the URL mapping. Okay. And this is a get method, and we have to provide the authentication as well, right? So request dot set header, because we'll have to provide the authentication as well. Authentication, and then here we wrote the bearer token, and then we will have to pass the session ID. So let's get the session ID in the SM Shivangi org debug it. This is our session ID, and we will copy and paste it. That's how we will get the response, and then we will debug the response system.debug, and here we can see response dot get status code. Let's call it response status code. And similar to this, let's also get the response body. Okay, let's copy the code of that. Yeah. Response dot get. Okay. All right, now let us try to do the call out and see if it is working or not. Okay, if we have provided everything properly and if the syntax is right, then this should work. This session ID is nothing but the random code you will get generated, and this does not have any meaning as such by the look of it, but this is a unique identifier which only system will be able to understand. So when you will hit this endpoint, then this call will be routed to your SM Shivangi OR. Okay, and at that time this OR will first do the authentication. Okay, authentication basically means that whether you are an authentic user or not. Okay, so this authentication will basically check whether you have authentic access to that or not. If you have, then only you will be able to hit that, or otherwise you will not be able to. So this access token, or you can say this session ID, will make sure that the authentication process goes through. Okay. Let's try to do the call out and see if it is working or not. So this was not the, let's execute. This method does not exist. Did I not save it? Okay, so this time we are able to do the call out. Let's see if we are getting a successful response or not. Okay, session expired or invalid session ID, which is normal, which is possible. Let's get the latest session ID. This will give me same session ID because I have checked it as if this should never expire. Okay, so there must be something wrong with how I'm doing it. Okay,
Is it the issue with the session ID?
sorry,
Is that the issue with the session ID?
I did not get you. Can you repeat?
Is there any issue with the session ID?
I think session ID is fine. There could be some issue with how I am doing it in maybe the endpoint is not right or something like that. That I want to recheck again. Okay. And then because session ID will remain same in this org because I am admin and I have set it from the backend.
I have one contradict statement for that. Like
Mm-hmm.
session IDs, we have a TTE. Like TTE, like time to elapse or something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It is still, I'm not sure they have the concrete statement for that. It is either 2 seconds or 3 seconds or 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Different purples will give a different logic on that. Session ID, TTE will depends on the connected session timeout,
Yeah.
connected app key session timeout,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
profile key timeout, profile में session ID and org wide session ID. So might be that this session ID might have got expired. That is what I'm just saying.
Could be possible. Don't worry. We will check that. We were able to do that yesterday, so we should be able to do that even today. Uh, don't worry. We will check that. Nothing to be worried about. Okay, just a second. So this is from my session settings. I have done it as if this should never expire. Okay, so authorization token and then bearer. Set method is fine. And we wrote it in the same simple, right? Authentication. Okay, this is not authentication. Authorization. Okay, this will do the authorization. Now let me save this and try this again. And okay, invalid auth header. Okay, authorization. Set header, authorization, error. Spelling of authorization is correct, right?
Yes.
All right, let's do it again. Yep. So now we are able to get the successful response from SM Shivangi org, and we've got the information related to case. So we did nothing fancy. We just, whatever code we were using in the anonymous block, we are now using it from a callout class. That's it. That is the only difference we did. But what I want to say is that this bearer token is bound to expire because currently, I am logging into both org as an admin and I have set it in a way that my token should not expire, but you will not do that thing for the API user. So this, even though this works, this is not a very good approach because every time you will be doing call out, you will be needing to get the different access token, different session ID. Session ID will definitely expire again and again, and to do the call out, you will be needing a new set of session ID. Now, to do it better, we will have to do certain things. Okay. Currently, what we have done on this org, on interview prep org, I have created a remote site setting so that I can do the call out. Okay. To improve this process, what I want to do is I want to automate this. I want to automate this process where we are doing the authorization. See, for any REST integration, authentication and authorization process is the most critical thing. All the other things are pretty easy, but the authentication and authorization is very critical because it is not only dependent on Salesforce, but also dependent on other system. What kind of authorization and authentication mechanism do they support? Currently, we are doing for Salesforce. We will also do a couple of other callouts to other system as well. But let's first start with the Salesforce and then check the other. So what I'm going to do, I want to automate this authentication process so that we need not to go again and again to ask for the bearer token. Okay. And I'm using a lot of different terms, sometimes bearer token, sometimes access token, sometimes session ID. All they are doing is they are authorizing you. So this line is authorizing interview preparation to or to have to be able to perform the get operation in SM Shivangi org. That's it. That's what we are doing here. To automate this process, first step is we will have to create the connected app. Connected app in the org where we have exposed our API. Okay, so let me write it down. To automate the authorization process, we have to create a connected app in the org where we are exposing our API, or we have created a web service. Okay. So first step is to create a connected app in the org where we have exposed our API. So we will go to app manager. We will create a new connected app. Okay. Let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. Call it interview prep to org connector. I want to give it a name so that that makes sense to you guys. Okay, interview preparation to org is doing call out, so I'll have to create a connector for that org here. Okay, let's give any email ID for now. This is not a, I mean, this will not send any verification to this email ID, just for the. Now, once you provide this, it has couple of options. Okay, for now, you need not to worry about all those options. Just think about this. Enable OAuth setting. Salesforce supports Auth 2.0 flow. And the moment I click on enable OAuth setting, it will give you couple of options. Okay, now this enabling OAuth settings basically enables you to give a lot of access to this connector. Like whosoever will be using this connector will have a lot of access. So here basically what you are trying to do is there are different types of scope. What kind of permissions you want to do? So if because at the end, by this connected app, a client secret and a client token will be generated. And that token should be given to the org which is doing the call out. So anybody who has that token and that client secret will be able to do all the things which you will provide here in the auth scope. Okay, so if I select everything, then it will give all the permissions that person will have or that person will be allowed to do in SM Shivangi or because we have given him this permission via this connected app. Okay, I will explain it again. Let me just first save it to localhost 6. Okay, So now here, one thing you need to remember is that we have to provide a callback URL. For now, we will just give any simple callback success or localhost or any URL you want to give. We will later on change it. Okay. And there are a couple of other checkboxes. For now, don't worry about them. Just whatever is coming as default, select it and provide the access. Okay. There are different types of access like full access and access interaction API resources like access connected REST API resources. So all these kind of accesses will enable interview prep org to be able to do call out to SM Shivangi org and to be able to fetch data or send data to this org or manage data to this org. Okay, that is the main purpose. For the simplicity, I have selected everything, but in a real project, you will not select everything. There are 3-4 things only you should be using to select. Okay, and I will save this. This obviously will take a couple of seconds. That is fine. Once this step is done, you will see that uh, consumer key and consumer secret, you will get this detail. Consumer key and consumer secret. So if you click on manage consumer detail, it will again ask me to do the verification. Let me just quickly check my mail and I will explain everything. Don't worry. Okay. Okay, we have got a mail and code is 555958. Okay, let's do that. So you have got this consumer key and consumer secret. Okay, so let us write down what we did. We created a connected app on SM Shivangi org and got consumer key and consumer secret. Okay, that's what we did, right? Now, in the org where we are doing call out, which is our interview prep to org, here we have to create a auth provider. First, we will create a auth provider. Because of this auth provider, we will automate the authentication and authorization process. How? We will see that. Okay. So the moment you click on new auth provider, it will give you different option provider type. All the widely accepted or you can say the orgs or the tools which we normally connect are given here, and Salesforce is also one of them. So we will first select Salesforce and then it will ask couple of things. Okay, don't worry, don't get fancied about this. You can say here assume Shivangi or auth provider. Okay, auth provider. Okay, this name makes sense because we are connecting to SM Shivangi org. Okay, and here you will have to provide the consumer key and consumer secret. These are the two secret ingredients because of which interview preparation to or will be able to understand that we are calling SM Shivangi or and SM Shivangi or will be able to authorize the interview preparation to or because we will have the consumer key and consumer secret and these tokens, these random tokens will be verified here when we do the call out. Okay, so we will add both and we need not, yeah, we have to also provide the default scope. So default scope is something I will tell. For now, let me just use it. So basically, this tells what kind of scope you will have on SM Shivangi org. You will be able to get the access token and refresh token, and you will have the full access. This is what we will do via the default scope, and we need not to add any comma with it. Just refresh token and then space and full, and we just have to save it. Okay, I will take questions, guys. I just want to first finish this in one attempt and then we will take questions. Now, once you save the auth provider, it will generate couple of URLs. Okay, you will have to copy the for callback URL Okay, copy the callback URL and in the connected app, you go to this connected app which we created and click on edit. We provided a local host earlier. Just remove that local host and paste the callback URL. This is a very important step. This basically completes the whole transaction of doing the call out and then going to the callback URL. Okay, and let's just save this. Now let's write down what we did now. We now have created a auth provider in the interview rep to org, which is doing the call. Okay, that's what we did in the system. Now, auth provider will obviously do the authentication automatically. Okay, authentication and authorization automatically with the help of consumer key and consumer secret. But obviously, this will not be called automatically. So we have to create a named credential as well. Currently, we do not have any name credential. Let's create a new name credential. And I want to do it in the classic. And I'll tell you why we are creating a named credential here. Let's call it SM Shivangi org name credential. Okay, this is what we are going to give it a name. Now, here we will have to provide the URL of our org. Okay, always remember, guys, this this is something you will see URL in your org. Okay, but what you need to send is this one. You can also bifurcate it that normal URL will have a lightning.force in it. Okay, we need not to give that one. We need to have the classic URL, which is this one. You will have to send this URL. And even in the callout also, we are using that URL only. This does not have MIDA, this does not have lightning, okay, which is there in the lightning. So remember, we'll have to copy this URL. Let's copy the URL, okay, and here there will be two options, named principal and per user. Okay, select the named principal, that is fine. Now, authentication protocol is something which we can select different types of authentication protocol available in Salesforce. We will use auth 2.2, but there are other authentication protocol as well, and we will have a dedicated session on these authentication protocols, so don't worry about them. But if we select no authentication, that means whatever callout we are doing to this endpoint does not require any authentication. Okay, this is not completely in this org's hand. This also depends on what SM Shivangi org wants. Does they want any system to be able to call them without any authentication or not, or they want to have? Okay, for now, we will select auth 2.0. The moment you select auth 2.0, it will ask you for the authentication provider. Because you have selected auth 2.0, Salesforce will expect you to provide auth provider like who will be doing the authentication and authorization for you. So the auth provider we created in the last step will be used here, and we will select that auth provider, and scope should be full. I think we have already defined the scope there, so don't worry about it. Or let's call it refresh full. And let's just save it. We need not to provide anything in the certificate. Save it. Okay. Just a second. Don't worry, you can save it. Just let's see if it got created or not. Okay, named credentials, and it got created. So delete this one. Let me check if it is working. Okay, I have to also start authentication flow on save. This is an important step because the moment we save this, this starts authenticating, and then you will have to provide your credential for SM Shivangi org. Okay, so you were in the interview prep 2 org. The moment you saved it, it starts the authentication process. Okay, and then if you will provide the right credential and login, then it will do the authentication. Okay, and then it will tell you that you are authorized to do all these things. Do you want to allow? You will say yes. And these are the permissions which we selected in the scopes. From left, we dragged all those things to right. These were the permissions. And once you are done with this step, you will see that it will tell you authenticated as a SM Shivangi, this user. So this will tell you the username, which we will be using to do the call out. Okay. Or you can say that this is your username for this org. Okay. And this process is done. We have created a name credential. We have created a auth provider. Okay, so let's write it down. We now have created a named credentials and have used auth provider from last step. Okay, now we are done with these steps. Now, what help will we get here? First, we need not to have this line. Second, we need not to provide the endpoint here. We still be needing the services slash epic rest slash cases, but here we can write down callout dot name of your named credential. Okay. Let's see what we did now. We were using this authorization header and then passing the session ID. We no longer need it because that is already available inside this name credential. This name credential has an auth provider which is doing authentication for us. Okay. And then we were using the endpoint here directly. Instead of giving all the endpoints, we have this name credential which has the base endpoint already. Okay, we just need to build on top of it. And let me just make a correction here and save this. So what we did is that we used callout. This is how you add a name credential in the endpoint. Callout colon the name of your name credential and then whatever you need after the base URL. That's how you're gonna do that. And you do not need to pass any access token at all. That is the real benefit we are getting, which is we are getting via the auth provider. Okay, we still be needing to provide what kind of method we are going to set. Okay, not okay. It will again call the. So anytime you change anything in the name credential, it will ask you to again revalidate your credential for SM Shivangi or okay. It will call the authentication protocol again and again to do that. Okay. So that's what we did. Now let me just save this and see if it is working or not. And if it is working, then I will explain the whole process again. Okay. All right. Let's see if we are now able to do the call out. Yep, we are able to get the cases data. Now, one thing I want you to not want you to let me also try that, because we created the remote site setting in the first in the first time we did this call out, we added a remote site setting. But now that we already have this endpoint added in the name credential, we no longer need the remote site setting as well. So let us delete that remote site setting and see if our call out is working fine or not. Okay. So let's go to setup. Remove site settings. Let's just delete that. All right, we have deleted the remote site setting. Now let us try to do the call out again. The aim here is to check if remote site setting is now required or not after the name credential. Okay, so let's execute this. Yep, we are able to get the cases again. So that basically proves our point that we no longer need remote site settings if we are using named credentials. Okay. Now, do you want me to repeat the whole process? What we did from step 1 till the last step?
Yes, Mohit.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sure. So
I have one question here actually.
go ahead.
Do we need to write the services Apex REST cases if we are calling it using the name credential? We can
Yes.
directly use only the name credential name and we can call it.
You are trying to say that if we remove this part from here and add it directly in the name credential, whether it will work or not?
No. I mean, if we remove that one and if we directly call it out, will it work?
No, it will not work. And I will show you that. Okay. Ideally, it should not work. See, I'll tell you why I'm saying it. Let me first check it. Yeah, so
It's working, right?
yeah, but we did not get a response, right? The case response.
Status code is 200, I guess.
Yeah, success code is 200. That means it was able to hit the endpoint, whatever endpoint we provided here, which is this SM Shivangi org endpoint, but it was not able to reach to here.
Not coming into the JSON format, it's coming into the some HTML format.
That I understand, but here, even if you see that, there is no case information. Getting the point?
Mm-hmm.
So it is not reaching this URL endpoint. It is able to
That whatever we created the web services is not reaching to that.
each actual web service which we created for it. Okay. So it obviously it will authenticate properly because it has all the other correct things. We have connected app and everything. So we can have multiple web service as well, right? So that's where this name credential come in the picture, and then you can append on top of it whatever you want to. There could be another web service we create which will use the same name credential, and then that name credential will work. Name credential will help you to connect the org and automate the authentication and authorization process. Okay. And then on top of that, you can provide the actual URL mapping, which will help you to reach the actual endpoint of your web service you created. Okay.
Understood.
Mohit, one question.
Go ahead, Manjunath.
Since name credentials, we can create a what is it, 2.0 or without 2.0. If I go without any of those three, it's also possible, right?
Yes, 100% possible. So it's not necessary that you will be needing the auth 2.0 only. If I go to the named credential, And if again, this will call the flow. Let's see.
Mohit, in name credential, why we use name principle in identify type?
I will tell you the difference between this. This is this per user or named principal does not make much difference for now. But if you have a different name credential for different users, you might be using it. But the actual difference, I'm not really sure. I will tell you the definition part of it for now. For now, even if I use the per user, then also it will work fine for us. So what I wanted to show you is that here, if you see the authentication protocol, it is not necessary that we use OAuth 2.0. It is okay if we use password authentication. In that case, you will be needing to pass the, if I select this one for the matter, okay, then it will ask for the username and password. Then here, by the help of username and password, you will have to just provide once the username and the password, and then also it will automate the authentication process. But this time it is doing with the help of username and password instead of consumer key and consumer secret. Okay, so whatever changes you do here, so let's say if I selected the auth 2.0, it was asking for the auth provider, because for auth 2.0 it does need consumer key and consumer secret, right? And consumer key and consumer secrets are stored in the auth provider. Earlier it was, I mean, there was no auth providers as such earlier, so you would get a consumer key and consumer secret right here. Okay, but they have automated, so now you can create auth provider and do this. But let's say you select JWT token. Okay, so in JWT token, you will have to provide these details. If you select, let's say, JWT token exchange, then you will have to provide these different details in order for this name credential to be able to validate the things. Okay, now how will you get the JWT token? From the org which is exposing their API, we have created the connected app here. So in the connected app also, you saw that we have gone for the auth 2.0, right? That is why it has created the consumer key and consumer secret. So the org which is exposing our API is responsible to give us the kind of authentication they want you to do. It does not depend on what we support. The org which is going to do the call out, it does not depend on what they support. It depends on the org which is exposing their API, what they support. Based on what they support, they will give you token, username, password, or JWT token, or other different mechanisms available. And then you will use those mechanisms if they are available here in the authentication protocol. If they are not available here, then it might be possible that this might not work. Okay, so when it comes to do the integration between two systems, the org which is exposing their API, they are the king. They have to decide whether that party who is going to do the call out will be using auth 2.0 or JWT token or no authentication or API token or whatever. It depends on what the org which is exposing their API depends on. Okay.
Mohit, one more question.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
In auth providers, if you go back there, I see like we have the already standard defined applications for which we have to connect.
Yeah.
And I found there is a one more open ID connect.
Yes.
So
So
if
if your listed application is not here, like you can say, I don't want to, I want to connect to a system whose name is not here, then we will connect the OpenID Connect. And then with the help of OpenID Connect, we will be able to do that. So let's say if I want to connect with here in our case, we needed to connect with Salesforce, which was already there in this list. But let's say I want to connect with Airtable, or let's say I want to connect to a spreadsheet, which is not available here. So in that case, we will be using the OpenID Connect, and then we will be creating. And tomorrow we will do a call out to a system by using the OpenID Connect to understand this in more detail. So don't worry. JWT token, OpenID Connect. I am going to cover all these things, so don't worry about it. I first want you to be comfortable with the basics, like who is doing call out, who is exposing the API, the person who is doing the call out, what are their responsibility, the person who is exposing the API, what is their responsibility or what is their system's responsibility. Once we are comfortable with this, then we will expand our horizon and we'll try to see the different things which we do not see normally. Like auth 2.0 is obviously most widely used and almost all the integration middlewares will have auth 2.0. But let's say you want to connect to YouTube. YouTube does not use auth 2.0 or YouTube just use the API token. So they will give you an API token and you will use an API token and then integration will happen. So you need not to go through all these hassle. You can just pass the API token in the call out code and then that should work fine. So it depends on system to system as well and which system we are calling and which kind of authentication does that system supports makes our integration process smooth. So that is why when it comes to integration, most people become uncomfortable because we are trying to run in an unknown territory. We are not sure what other system is expecting from us or what do they support. So as an experienced candidate, whenever we'll have to attend an integration call with a different system, we will have to specifically ask, okay, what kind of authentication mechanism do you support? Let's say I have to do a call out to SAP. Now, SAP developer is with me on a same call and I have to do call out. They have exposed something. So I will be asking, okay, you have exposed your endpoint. How will I be authenticating with it? Do you support auth 2.0? So he will tell, okay, I will give you a username and password and that user will have all the permissions. If you just pass the username and password, you will be able to hit the endpoint. That means he is referring us to use the name credential, the username password kind of mechanism. So there are different types of mechanism available. Even if inside the auth 2.0, it's not necessary that we will always get the consumer key and consumer secret. Okay, there are different types of flow available and username password is a kind of flow we can use in that context. Let's say he says that we do support auth 2.0. I will be giving you a consumer key and consumer secret. Then we are good. We will get the consumer key and some consumer secret. We will create a auth provider, add those consumer key and consumer secret there, and we will also ask them to provide us the endpoint and everything. They will give us or they will ask us in case of we are creating auth provider, they will ask us to give the endpoint. We will give them, they will put that endpoint and then the authentication process will be smooth there. So if you see when we create the auth provider on my screen, let me full screen it. There are many things. Okay. Uh, Connected app. I wanted to show connected app. Just a second. Yeah. So if I go to again manager, that if I enable the OAuth setting, you will see a lot of things here. Okay. You can see require secret for web server flow, require secret for refresh token flow, enable client credential flow, enable authorization code and credential flow, enable token exchange flow, enable refresh token rotation. There are so many things and we will cover, don't worry, we will cover everything. For now, I just wanted you to be comfortable with basics of it. That's how the default selection you will be doing always if other system is also supporting auth 2.0. Okay, but there are more layers in it and we will have to unwrap all these layers one by one. But what I want to see here is that whether you are comfortable with the basics of this or not. So for that, you need to tell me if it was helpful, whether you are able to understand the basics of it or not. And then I will I think you want me to repeat the flow again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's do that. So let me open this class.
Sir, just a doubt.
Go ahead.
By providing the consumer key and consumer secret, we are telling the other org that it is an OAuth type of authentication process. So you have to use OAuth 2.0 authentication process, right?
Yes, by giving them consumer, see, you will create a connected app and you will select the OAuth setting. When you both, you and the other system owner both agrees that we will be okay to do the integration via auth 2.0. Okay. And then when he gives you a go ahead to create a connected app, you will create a connected app and he will ask you to provide me consumer key and consumer secret so that he can use those two things and do the integration. Okay. Many times you will be hitting the APIs of the system, which just approves the API token. So in that case, they will just give you API token. They will give you the endpoint and API token, and you will use the API token in the authorization. You'll see the same way we did request.set header authorization, and here you will pass the API token. That's it. And then you will be able to do the integration. So it depends on other system. Okay. We will
Uh, o-
we will
okay.
not. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So instead of providing the consumer key and consumer secret, are there any other options to make the authentication for means by providing token or JWT or any other in your
Yeah,
Salesforce?
there is a possibility that you do not do any authorization or authentication. You just say that this is an open API. I don't want anybody to use any authorization. If you have the endpoint, you will be able to do the call out. All the free APIs which we used, the all the Google APIs which we used to
Right.
call out, those were free. Open APIs, there was no security involved in it. But Salesforce recommend us to use the auth 2.0 because it is secure way to connect in the API integration landscape. Okay. Yes.
Oh,
So saying right, it depends on target org, what they provide for authentication. Okay. So let me repeat the flow once again and then go through the question. Okay. This is the org SM Shivangi org where we have created the web service. In this web service, we have two methods, get method and post method, and this is the end point of it. Now here we just write the end point of an endpoint, but the actual endpoint will consist of your base URL along with services, Apex REST, and then the URL mapping you provide here. So combining all will become the actual endpoint which a third party system will be using to do a call out to you. If you are exposing something, then another system will be doing the call out because here you have created, this is nothing but an API. If you combine these cases with base URL, Apex services and Apex REST, then this will become an API endpoint. Okay, so when the people say that they have created an API in Salesforce, they mean that they have created a web service class which has an endpoint and other people, other system can hit this endpoint. Okay, that is the basic meaning of when they say I have created an API. Or you may go in a call, technical call, where other system will ask you to create an API and give them the endpoint. Okay, so that's what they basically mean is that you will create a web service class and create an endpoint and give them the combined endpoint like this URL slash services slash Apex slash cases. That will be the endpoint, actual endpoint. Okay. So this is what they want. But you as a Salesforce developer will create an API. And in order for any other system to be able to do the call out to that API, we need to have authentication and authorization. Now, here is a very important question. What is the difference between authentication and authorization? Authentication basically means that to check whether you are an authentic user or not. It's like logging into the system. So you open your laptop, you will have a password for it. When the moment you provide password for it, that is basically the authentication mechanism, which will check whether you are an authentic user to use the system or not. If you are the owner of it, you should know the password of it. If you provide the correct password, then you are an authentic user and system will allow you and will open the windows for you. That is authentication. Authorization, on the other hand, is to basically check whether you are authorized to do something or not. Now you are able to open the system, but let's say you are not allowed to go to the drive C, because drive C is associated with the company admin. Okay, so although you are an authentic user, but you are not authorized to go to drive C, because drive C belongs to admin. So that process is basically known as authorization. Authorization basically means whether you are authorized to do something or not, whether you are authorized to get the cases or not, whether you have proper permission to get the cases or not, whether you have proper permission to read the cases or not. Let's say you have opened the get API, HTTP GET, and here you are returning the list of cases, but the user who is doing the callout does not have any permission on case object. So in that case, he will not be authorized to view the cases. Even though he is an authentic user, he is not you have not authorized him to do certain thing. And how do you give that authorization? Here, different scopes you select, and that's how you will give them access. If they have full access on the system, then that means they are authorized to do these things. They are authorized to manage data. They are authorized to view data. Okay, but if you do not provide the necessary access, that means they are not authorized to do. In that case, they will only be able to do the things which you have authorized them to do. So you authorize those people. Okay, you authorize them and help them what they can do. So that is basically the difference between authentication and authorization. This is the first interview question comes in from the integration topic, the difference between authentication and authorization. Okay. And then once you created your endpoint, somebody else need to call it. This time, luckily, it was a Salesforce system. So the reason why we choose Salesforce system is that from the Salesforce itself, you should be comfortable with how to do the call out versus how to expose your API. Both things will be able to cover in a single attempt. Okay, that's why we choose Salesforce. But we will also call other system as well. So we will do a call out to call the YouTube. We will do a call out to call the LinkedIn. We will do a call out to call the Gmail if you want, and if you have enough time. Okay, so and I will tell you how to find those API endpoints and everything from their website, so that you can, even if you want to explore it on your own, you should be able to do that. Now, exposing API was one part, doing the call out was another part. Earlier, we were doing the call out with the help of session ID. This session ID itself was doing authentication and authorization for us. If you have a valid session ID, that means you are a valid user and you have all the necessary access to perform the operation. So this session ID is something, say what happens in the backend is that Salesforce understand that if you have a session ID for Salesforce login, that means you have obtained that session ID via a legal channel or via a valid channel. If you have a valid session ID, that means you have a valid access to that system and you are allowed to do those things. Okay, so that's what we did in the first attempt. But session ID obviously is not a good approach, and and even the username and password is not a very good approach, but you can still use username and password, which is better than at least using session ID. Why we used auth provider and name credential is to automate this whole process. Now, if we use, let's say, if we are not using the name credential and if we use username and password, you will have to send the username and password in the HTTP callout. Okay, over the HTTP protocol, this will go to the servers and the username and password will be exposed in the server. There are very high chances that you may your security might be breached because your username and password were there in the server and someone can try to access that. So sending username and password over an HTTP call out is a very bad thing. If we use name credential, no matter if we are using just the name password or client secret or client token, if we use name credential, then it hides all those things. Your HTTP callout will not have your username or password or client secret or client token in the HTTP server. This happens in the backend. With the help of name credential and auth provider, you just removed or you just make yourself safe by the internet risk of having your tokens and password everything on the server. So it automates the process, it improves the security of your system, and it obviously is a better way of doing it because you need not to obtain the access token again and again, or you need not to worry about sending the username and password again the server. There are obviously different ways to do it, like you can store those username and password in the custom metadata and then do the call out. That is also possible, and earlier we used to do that. We used to create a custom metadata where we used to store the username and password and then use the metadata here in the endpoint. But this is the latest way. This is the most secure and best possible way because you need not to do anything. Just need to add the name credential. That's it. Work will be done. Now, whatever I have written here is very important. Most of the time, people get confused with where, in which org shall we be creating connected org, in which org shall I be creating auth provider, in which org we will be creating name credentials. So the org which is exposing the API, that org is responsible to basically check who should be able to access this endpoint. So you will create the connected app in the org which is exposing API, and rest of the other things will be done in the org which is doing the call out. Here both the orgs are Salesforce, but in the real scenario, most of the time you will either be exposing your API or you'll be doing the call out. Okay, so if you are doing call out, then you will be creating name credentials and auth provider. If you're exposing, then you will be creating the connected app. So connected app basically means that who can access your Salesforce org. In whatever you provide in the connected app, that means you are allowing that app. Connected app means you are connecting another app. You are allowing another app to be connected with your Salesforce system so that they will be able to access your Salesforce instance. What they can do, what they cannot do depends on what scope you provide. But connected app basically means that you are allowing another app to be able to connect with your Salesforce instance. Okay. So I hope this is clear to you guys. Connected app, name credential, and auth provider, remote site setting. And I will copy everything. So let me first copy the call out code and send it on the WhatsApp. And then I will copy the exposing API code as well. I want you to practice. We will do the couple of call outs today, not today. We will do couple of call outs tomorrow. But first part will be to understand what are the other authentication and authorization mechanism available, because that's where most of the people get confused. Even I was highly confused when I first heard this term, JWT token and all those things. I want you to be comfortable with it. And then we will do couple of call outs to other systems. And we get this in other group as well. In Salesforce into, yeah, why not? See this, whatever I'm doing here has to go to the first batch as well, because in the first batch, we did not cover integration in much detail. We just covered it. But the fact is that most of the people in the batch one have already got jobs, so hardly anybody respond there, which is good. Like for me as a teacher, that is a good thing. I'm glad people are not asking question much there.
No, this is not about a job. This is about enhancing the skills.
Yeah, so they must be busy in their own work, which is okay. Yes, I will upload the recording. Let me first stop sharing and